The vastness of space stretched before humanity like an endless ocean. Stars, once mere twinkling dots in ancient skies, have become destinations, waypoints in mankind's relentless expansion beyond Earth. Humanity had managed to establish outposts on Mars, mining operations on several asteroids, and research stations as far as Jupiter's moons. Yet, for all this progress, we had barely scratched the surface of our own solar system, let alone ventured into the true depths of our galaxy. In the Grand Council chamber of the Earth Alliance headquarters in Geneva, Admiral Helena Reyes stood at the observation window, her weathered face reflecting in the reinforced glass as she gazed at the bustling spaceport below. Shuttles and transport vessels moved in precisely choreographed patterns, ferrying personnel and supplies to the orbital stations that serve as humanity's gateways to the stars. "They've confirmed it then?" she asked without turning. Director Marcus Way nodded, though he knew she couldn't see the gesture. "Yes, Admiral. The Titan research station has been receiving the signals consistently for the past 3 weeks. The pattern is undeniable, and our linguistics team has ruled out any known human language or code." The Earth Alliance Council, formed after the Third Resource War that had nearly fractured human civilization beyond repair, represented the unified government of Earth and its extraterrestrial colonies. For decades, it had managed to maintain an uneasy peace among formerly hostile nations and corporations, primarily through the shared goal of expanding humanity's reach among the stars. And the signal origin? Reyes finally turned, her steel-gray eyes fixing on the director with an intensity that made him straighten his posture reflexively. Beyond Neptune's orbit in the Kuiper Belt, though the exact source keeps shifting. Mobile, Reyes concluded. It wasn't a question. Colonel Aiden Pierce entered the chamber, his uniform bearing the insignia of the Earth Alliance Special Operations Division. At 45, Pierce had already seen more combat than most career soldiers, having led peacekeeping missions to quell rebellions on Mars and asteroid colonies, where local populations had grown resentful of Earth's continuing authority. "Admiral, Director," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "I've reviewed the signal data. This isn't random cosmic noise. It's structured, purposeful, and," he hesitated, "it appears to be scanning our defenses." "You can't possibly know that," objected Counselor Rivera, who had been silently observing the exchange. "It could be anything, a natural phenomenon we don't understand, automated signals from a long-dead civilization's probe." Pierce's expression hardened. "With respect, Counselor, I've spent my career identifying threats before they materialize. These signals bear all the hallmarks of tactical reconnaissance. They're probing our communications networks, testing for responses, mapping our infrastructure." Rivera scoffed. "And I suppose next you'll tell us an alien armada is about to invade? The public is already on edge with the food shortages on Mars. The last thing we need is military paranoia, spreading panic." Admiral Reyes intervened before Pierce could respond. "What Colonel Pierce is suggesting merits serious consideration. If there's even a remote possibility we're dealing with an extraterrestrial intelligence gathering data on our capabilities, we need to be prepared." Director Way cleared his throat. "The Council is divided on this matter. Some members share Counselor Rivera's skepticism. Others are concerned enough to authorize increased military readiness, but not enough to alarm the public." "Typical bureaucratic half-measures," Pierce muttered, earning a sharp glance from the Admiral. "What are you proposing, Colonel?" Reyes asked. "Let me take a small team to investigate the signal source. The _Horizon_ is equipped with the latest stealth technology. We can approach without detection, assess the situation, and report back without escalating tensions." The room fell silent as the implications hung in the air. Humanity had long speculated about the existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life. Scientists had searched the cosmos for centuries, listening for signals, analyzing distant planets for signs of civilization. But now, faced with the real possibility of first contact, the realization dawned that humanity might not be ready. "Throughout our history," Admiral Reyes finally said, her voice low but clear, We have fought countless wars. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We've mastered the art of killing each other with ever-increasing efficiency. We think we understand war. She turned back to the window, watching as a military transport ascended toward the stars. But if this is what we fear it might be, we haven't seen anything yet. The council eventually approved Pierce's mission, though, with strict parameters: observation only, no engagement unless directly threatened, and constant communication with Earth Command. The Horizon a sleek, state-of-the-art reconnaissance vessel designed for extended deep space operations, was prepared for immediate departure. Colonel Pierce assembled his team carefully. Major Sofia Kovalenko, a tactical genius whose unorthodox strategies had saved countless lives during the asteroid belt insurgencies. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel, whose expertise in xenolinguistics might prove invaluable. Security Chief Teresa Alvarez, whose combat skills were matched only by her unwavering loyalty. And Dr. Leonard Harris, the brilliant and somewhat eccentric Chief Science Officer, whose understanding of advanced physics had revolutionized interplanetary travel. As the Horizon broke Earth orbit, Pierce gathered his team in the ship's command center. The mood was tense, each officer aware of the historic significance and potential danger of their mission. "I won't sugarcoat this," Pierce began, his gaze sweeping across the faces before him. "We're heading into completely unknown territory. Our mission parameters say observe and report, but we all know situations rarely follow the script." Kovalenko nodded grimly. "Rules of engagement, standard defensive protocols," Pierce replied. "We avoid conflict if possible, but I won't hesitate to protect this ship and crew if necessary." He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. "We may be making first contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, or we may be meeting an advanced enemy scout. Either way, humanity's future could hinge on what we discover." Dr. Harris spoke up, his voice lacking the military crispness of the others. "We should consider peaceful approaches first. If this is an advanced civilization capable of interstellar travel, they likely have technologies far beyond our own. Hostility would be inadvisable." "Noted, Doctor," Pierce acknowledged. "But history has taught us that technological superiority often breeds arrogance, not benevolence. Just ask the indigenous peoples who first encountered European explorers on Earth. The journey to the Kuiper Belt took weeks, even with the Horizon's advanced propulsion systems. As they approached the coordinates of the mysterious signal's origin, the crew grew increasingly on edge. Sleep became difficult, conversations shorter. They were venturing further from Earth than any military vessel had gone before, into the cold, dark fringe of the solar system, where the sun appeared as little more than a bright star. Lieutenant Commander Patel spent hours in the communications lab, analyzing the increasingly strong signal patterns. His usual calm demeanor gave way to visible excitement as he burst onto the bridge one morning. "Colonel, I made a breakthrough," he announced, transferring data to the main display. "The signals aren't just probing our systems. They're establishing a comprehensive map of all human outposts and communications networks. It's like they're creating a detailed strategic assessment of our entire civilization." Pierce studied the display, his expression grim. "So much for the natural phenomenon theory." "There's more," Patel continued. "I've detected new signal patterns emerging over the past 12 hours. They're different, more complex, more urgent, as if they're reporting back to something or someone," Alvarez added quietly. The proximity alert sounded before anyone could respond further. Dr. Harris rushed to the sensor station, his hands flying over the controls. "Multiple objects detected at extreme range," he reported, his voice tense. "They're moving fast toward us." Pierce immediately activated the ship's stealth systems. "Battle stations. Maintain communications blackout. Let's see who our visitors are before we introduce ourselves." The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the sensor display filled with approaching contacts. Not one or two vessels, but dozens, moving with precision and purpose. Their design was unlike anything in human records, sleek, asymmetrical crafts that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, making them difficult to track even with the _Horizon's _advanced sensors. "My God," whispered Kovalenko. "That's not an exploratory mission. That's a fleet." Pierce's mind raced through strategic calculations. "They haven't altered course to intercept us. They might not have detected us yet. Where are they heading?" Alvarez asked, though they all suspected the answer. Dr. Harris confirmed their fears. Based on their trajectory, they're heading toward the Mars colonies. The decision Pierce faced was momentous. Their orders were clear: observe and report. Engaging such a force would be suicide and might provoke an immediate attack on Earth. Yet allowing an unknown, potentially hostile fleet to approach unsuspecting human settlements without warning was unthinkable. "Patel, prepare a tight beam transmission to Earth Command. Encrypt it at highest level. We need to warn them." Pierce turned to the navigation officer. "Plot an intercept course that keeps us at maximum sensor range. We need more information about these vessels." The _Horizon moved silently through the void, maintaining its distance from the alien fleet. For hours, they gathered data, recording everything they could about the mysterious vessels. When they were finally forced to break communication silence to transmit their findings to Earth, the response was immediate and unequivocal. Maintain surveillance, but under no circumstances engage. "They still don't grasp the magnitude of the threat," Pierce murmured after reading the transmission. Major Kovalenko stood beside him, her face illuminated by the display showing the alien fleet's progress. "They will soon enough." The alien fleet's trajectory suddenly shifted, accelerating toward Mars at speeds that human vessels couldn't match. Pierce ordered immediate pursuit, pushing the _Horizon's engines beyond recommended limits. Even so, they arrived too late to prevent what happened next. The assault on the Mars colonies began without warning or declaration. The alien vessels positioned themselves in orbit and unleashed weapons of devastating power. Energy beams that pierced defensive shields as if they were tissue paper, precision strikes that targeted communications arrays, power plants, and military installations with surgical accuracy. From their position in high orbit, the crew of the _Horizon watched in horror as the Mars Defense Force scrambled to respond. Human vessels rose to meet the attackers but were outmatched in every aspect. The battle, if it could even be called that, was brutally one-sided. "We have to help them," Alvarez insisted, her hands clenched into fists. Pierce shook his head, his expression pained. "Against that kind of firepower, we'd be destroyed before we fired a single shot. Our duty now is to survive and report everything we're seeing." The assault lasted less than an hour. When it ended, Mars' orbital defenses lay in ruins, its major settlements under alien occupation. The few human vessels that had survived retreated toward Earth, carrying wounded and refugees. The _Horizon followed at a distance, continuing to monitor the alien fleet's movements and transmitting updates to an increasingly panicked Earth command. It was during one of these observation periods that they made their most significant discovery. "Colonel, we've intercepted communications between the alien vessels," Patel reported. "I can't translate the language yet, but I've identified repeating patterns that seem to denote rank or affiliation. They refer to themselves as..." The closest approximation in our language would be Zaluk. The name sent a chill through the bridge. The unknown enemy now had an identity, a name that would soon be spoken with fear throughout human space. "What are they doing now?" Pierce asked, studying the tactical display. "Consolidating their hold on Mars," Kovalenko replied. "They're setting up some kind of network, possibly communication jammers or defensive systems. And they're methodical. This isn't a random attack. It's a carefully planned invasion." The grim assessment proved accurate. Within days, the Zaluk had established complete control over Mars and had begun advancing toward Earth. Attempts at communication had yielded nothing but silence. The few prisoners they had taken, citizens or soldiers from the Mars colonies, had been neither returned nor allowed contact. When the _horizon_ finally limped back to Earth orbit 2 weeks after their initial encounter, they found a world transformed by fear and frantic preparation. The unified government that had maintained peace for decades was fracturing under pressure as nations and corporations argued over response strategies and resource allocation. Admiral Reyes met Pierce personally upon his return, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Your reports saved us precious time," she said as they walked briskly through the crowded corridors of Earth Command. "We've evacuated as many civilians as possible from the moon and orbital habitats. The outer colonies have been advised to go dark, power down all non-essential systems, and hope the Zaluk pass them by." "It won't work," Pierce replied bluntly. "Not long-term. What we witnessed at Mars wasn't a raid or a demonstration. It was the first phase of a systematic invasion. They're coming for Earth, Admiral. We need to be ready to fight like we've never fought before." The Earth Alliance quickly implemented what preparations they could. A defensive perimeter was established using every available military vessel. Civilian ships were retrofitted with weapons systems. Ground-based anti-orbital cannons, originally designed to destroy incoming asteroids, were repurposed as defense against potential landing forces. Colonel Pierce, promoted to general following his return, was granted command of the Special Operations Division with a broad mandate. Develop strategies to combat an enemy with superior technology and unknown capabilities. He immediately recruited specialists from diverse fields. Not just military experts, but scientists, engineers, even historians specializing in asymmetric warfare. "Conventional tactics won't work against the Zaluk," he explained to his assembled team during their first briefing. "We can't match them ship for ship or weapon for weapon. But humanity has a long history of overcoming technologically superior invaders through adaptability and sheer determination." Dr. Harris, who had chosen to remain with Pierce's team rather than return to his research position, added, "We need to understand their technology. Every advanced system has vulnerabilities, we just have to find them." The opportunity to test their theories came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after the fall of Mars, the Zaluk fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's lunar orbit. The assembled human defense forces moved to intercept, following the stratified defense plan developed by General Pierce and his team. The battle for Earth's orbit began with a devastating exchange. The front line of human ships, older vessels crewed by volunteers who understood the suicide nature of their mission, absorbed the initial Zaluk assault, gathering critical data on enemy weapons and tactics before they were destroyed. This sacrifice allowed the second wave of Earth's defenders to adjust their approach, focusing concentrated fire on specific points of the Zaluk vessels that appeared somewhat vulnerable based on the data. It wasn't enough to destroy the alien ships, but forced them to adjust their formation, creating opening for the specialized strike teams Pierce had prepared. Using smaller, faster craft equipped with hastily developed countermeasures against Zaluk sensors, these teams executed precision strikes against the alien fleet's command vessels. The human casualties were enormous, but they managed to inflict the first significant damage on the invaders. From the command center beneath the Himalayan mountains, General Pierce watched the battle unfold through real-time feeds. They didn't expect this level of resistance. He observed as reports of successful strikes came in. They thought Mars was representative of our capabilities. Admiral Reyes, who had assumed overall command of Earth's military forces, nodded grimly. "We surprised them, but they're already adapting. Look." The tactical display showed the Zaluk fleet reorganizing, adopting a more defensive posture while continuing their advance toward Earth. Their weapons fire became more precise, targeting the specific human vessels that had proven most effective against them. "They learn quickly," Reyes noted, "but so do we." The orbital battle raged for days, with neither side gaining decisive advantage. The human forces couldn't prevent the Zaluk from establishing positions around Earth, but they managed to keep the aliens from achieving the complete dominance they had established over Mars. Then came a ground assault. The Zaluk landing craft breached Earth's atmosphere at multiple points simultaneously: North America, Asia, Europe, and Australia. They targeted major cities and military installations, deploying forces with ruthless efficiency. The invaders themselves were finally revealed, towering humanoid figures encased in armor that seemed to shift and adapt to environmental conditions, wielding weapons that discharged pulses of destructive energy. Human ground forces mounted desperate resistance. Conventional military units were quickly overwhelmed, but as the fighting spread into urban areas, the Zaluk encountered a type of warfare they hadn't experienced on Mars, where the human presence had been limited to isolated settlements. In cities around the world, civilians joined military personnel in guerrilla resistance. Every street became a potential ambush site, every building a fortress. The invaders' superior technology offered less advantage in close-quarter urban combat, where their large forms made them targets in narrow spaces, and their energy weapons risked collateral damage that could bring structures down upon them. In Shanghai, a militia group led by former military engineers developed electromagnetic pulse devices that temporarily disabled Zaluk armor systems. In London, underground fighters discovered that concentrated acid compounds could damage the aliens' armor joints. In Rio de Janeiro, resistance fighters used the city's complex tunnel networks to strike and disappear before reinforcements arrived. General Pierce established a global resistance network, using remaining satellites and improvised communication systems to share effective tactics between fighting groups worldwide. Dr. Harris and his scientific team worked tirelessly to reverse engineer, captured Zaluk technology, making incremental breakthroughs that were immediately implemented in the field. One of these breakthroughs came from an unexpected source. Sandra Reyes, the Admiral's 19-year-old daughter and a brilliant physics student, had been working with Dr. Harris's team when she noticed a pattern in the Zaluk energy signatures. Their weapons and shields operate on similar frequency bands, she explained during an emergency briefing. If we can generate a precise counterfrequency, essentially create destructive interference, we might be able to temporarily disrupt their systems. The theory was promising, but putting it into practice required components that were increasingly difficult to obtain as supply chains collapsed under the invasion. Teams were dispatched to abandoned research facilities and manufacturing plants, often behind enemy lines, to salvage the necessary materials. Major Kovalenko, now commanding a mixed unit of Special Forces operators and civilian specialists, led one such mission to a quantum computing facility in the Ural Mountains. The facility had been partially destroyed during the initial Zaluk assault, but its subterranean levels remained intact. "We have 15 minutes before the next Zaluk patrol," Kovalenko informed her team as they breached the facility's emergency entrance. "Grab everything on the list and anything else that looks useful." They worked quickly, salvaging quantum processors and specialized cooling systems. As they were preparing to withdraw, the facility's power flickered unexpectedly back to life. Someone or something had activated the backup generators. "This isn't right," muttered their technical specialist, a former employee of the facility named Yuri. "The protocols require manual restart of the generators. Someone else is here." Kovalenko signaled for silence, directing her team to defensive positions. Minutes later, they heard the distinctive heavy footsteps of Zaluk's soldiers approaching the laboratory. But instead of an attack, they witnessed something unexpected. 3 Zaluk, their armor partially removed, were carefully extracting data cores from the facility's mainframe. "They're gathering our scientific research," Yuri whispered. "They're not just conquering, they're studying us." This observation proved crucial when they returned to the Resistance headquarters. It suggested the Zaluk weren't merely interested in Earth's territory. They valued human knowledge and technology, despite their own advanced capabilities. "They see us as worthy of study," Dr. Harris noted when Kovalenko reported her findings. "That means they recognize something in us they consider valuable or potentially threatening." General Pierce immediately saw the strategic implications. "If they want our knowledge, they need our infrastructure relatively intact. That gives us leverage we didn't know we had." The Resistance adjusted its strategy accordingly. Rather than merely reacting to Zaluk movements, they began targeting the aliens' data-gathering operations specifically. This forced the invaders to commit more resources to protecting these missions, thinning their forces elsewhere. Meanwhile, Dr. Harris's team, bolstered by the components retrieved from the Ural facility, developed working prototypes of the disruption device Sandra Reyes had theorized. Early field tests showed promise. At close range, the devices could temporarily disable Zaluk weapons and defensive systems, creating a brief window for conventional attacks to be effective. The tide of the ground war began to shift, incrementally but noticeably. Human resistance forces grew bolder, launching coordinated strikes against Zaluk strongholds. The invaders, for the first time, were forced to abandon certain positions and consolidate their forces. In orbit, the situation remained precarious. The human fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its original strength, while the Zaluk continued to receive reinforcements. Earth's remaining orbital defenses focused on preventing the aliens from deploying their most devastating weapons against the planet's surface. It was during this tense stalemate that Earth's long-range sensors detected a massive energy buildup in the Zaluk fleet. Analysis confirmed their worst fears. The aliens were preparing a weapon capable of rendering Earth's atmosphere unbreathable through a complex chain reaction involving the ionosphere. They've concluded that subduing us is too costly, Admiral Reyes explained to the gathered resistance leadership. So they're shifting to their contingency plan, making Earth uninhabitable for us, but presumably still valuable for whatever resources they're after. The revelation galvanized the fragmented human forces. Faced with extinction, former adversaries set aside their differences. Nations that had been hoarding resources shared them freely. Scientists who had worked in isolation combined their findings. General Pierce proposed a daring plan. While the Zaluk were focused on deploying their atmospheric weapon, a small team would infiltrate their command vessel using a captured alien shuttle modified with human stealth technology. Once aboard, they would use the disruption devices to disable the ship's systems long enough to halt the weapon's deployment and potentially sabotage the fleet's coordination. It's a suicide mission, Admiral Reyes stated bluntly. Yes, Pierce acknowledged, but it's also our only chance. Their atmospheric weapon will deploy in less than 72 hours. Once it's activated, there's no turning back. The team selected for the mission included Pierce himself, Major Kovalenko, Lieutenant Commander Patel, Security Chief Alvarez, and Dr. Harris, the original crew of the _Horizon_, who had first encountered the Zaluk. Sandra Reyes joined them as well, her understanding of the disruption technology proving invaluable. Their modified shuttle launched during a coordinated attack by Earth's remaining military forces, a desperate gambit to draw the Zaluk's attention away from a single approaching craft. The diversion worked, allowing Pierce's team to dock with a massive alien command vessel by mimicking the signature of a returning Zaluk scout ship. Boarding the alien vessel was like entering another world. The interior architecture defied human aesthetic and engineering principles, with curving corridors that seemed to shift subtly and environmental conditions that fluctuated in patterns the team couldn't discern. The atmosphere was breathable but uncomfortable, with higher pressure and unfamiliar trace elements that made their eyes water and skin itch. Remember the objective, Pierce reminded his team as they moved cautiously through the alien environment. We locate the weapon control systems, deploy the disruptors, and sabotage anything we can in the time we have. Moving through the vessel proved challenging. The Zaluk used bioelectric fields for access control rather than mechanical locks, forcing Dr. Harris to improvise solutions using salvaged alien technology. They encountered several Zaluk crew members, managing to avoid detection through a combination of stealth and the disruption devices, which temporarily confused the alien sensory systems. Their breakthrough came when Patel, whose understanding of Zaluk language had improved through studying capture communications, decoded enough of the ship's internal guidance system to locate what appeared to be the weapon control center. It's 5 levels up, he reported, studying the alien symbols. But there's something else here, some kind of central data repository near our current position. Pierce made a quick decision. Kovalenko, Alvarez, Harris, continue to the weapon controls. Patel, Sandra, and I will check this data repository. It might contain information crucial to understanding their overall strategy. The team split, each group facing their own challenges navigating the alien vessel. Pierce's team reached the data repository first, a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light and energy. It's their version of a computer core, Sandra whispered in awe. But it's biomechanical. The processing medium appears to be some kind of engineered organic tissue. Patel worked quickly to interface their equipment with the alien technology. I'm downloading everything I can, he reported. But there's too much data to process here. We need to. An alarm suddenly reverberated through the ship. Not a human-like siren, but a modulating tone that seemed to resonate painfully in their bones. They had been discovered. Continue the download, Pierce ordered, positioning himself at the entrance with his weapon ready. We need that data. Meanwhile, Kovalenko's team had reached the weapon control center, encountering heavier resistance. Alvarez was injured in a brief firefight with Zaluk guards, but they managed to secure the chamber using the disruption devices to incapacitate the alien operators. Dr. Harris worked feverishly to understand the weapon systems. It's as we feared, he confirmed after several tense minutes. The device creates a cascading reaction in the atmosphere, essentially converting oxygen to compounds toxic to human life while leaving the planet's resources intact. He looked up, his expression grim. And it's already been activated. We have minutes, not hours. Kovalenko immediately relayed this information to Pierce. We need to shut it down now. Harris is working on it, but we're running out of time. In the data repository, Pierce made a difficult decision. Patel, how much have you downloaded? Maybe 30% of what's here, but it's enough. We're coming to you. Pierce turned to Sandra. Can your disruption device be modified to overload? She understood immediately. Create an electromagnetic pulse? Yes, but it would destroy everything in this chamber, including our downloaded data, if we don't shield it properly. Do it. We'll use it as a diversion. As Zaluk forces converged on their position, Sandra quickly reconfigured her device. They shielded their data storage unit and planted the modified disruptor among the crystalline structures before retreating toward the weapon control center. The resulting explosion tore through the data repository, sending cascading failures throughout the ship's systems. Emergency lighting bathed the corridors in an alien equivalent of red alert as Pierce's team fought their way to rejoin the others. In the weapon control center, Dr. Harris had reached a grim conclusion. I can't deactivate it completely. Their fail-safes are too complex. But I can redirect it. Meaning what? Kovalenko demanded. Instead of targeting Earth's atmosphere, I can set it to discharge into space. But someone needs to manually hold the override during the energy transfer. His expression said what words didn't. Whoever performed this task wouldn't survive the radiation exposure. Before anyone could volunteer, Alvarez spoke up from where she sat, pressing a makeshift bandage against her wound. I'm already compromised. Get the data back to Earth. I'll handle this. No amount of argument would dissuade her. As Pierce's team arrived at the control center, the plan was already in motion. Dr. Harris had reconfigured the weapon systems, and Alvarez was positioned at the override station. The rest of you need to go now, she insisted. The ship's security systems are coming back online. Once the weapon discharges, there will be chaos. Use it to escape. Pierce clasped her shoulder. Your sacrifice won't be forgotten, Teresa. Her smile was tight with pain, but determined. Just make sure it matters. Make them pay for what they've done. The team retreated toward their shuttle, fighting through increasingly organized Zaluk resistance. Behind them, Security Chief Teresa Alvarez held her position as the atmospheric weapon built to its climax. When it discharged, the energy was redirected from Earth into open space, a blinding flash that temporarily overloaded the Zaluk vessel systems. The human team used the resulting confusion to reach their shuttle and disengage from the alien ship. As they pulled away, they witnessed the command vessel struggling to regain control, its systems compromised by both the weapon malfunction and the destruction of its data repository. More importantly, The coordinated control the vessel had maintained over the Zaluk fleet was disrupted. Across Earth orbit, alien ships suddenly operated independently rather than as a cohesive force, creating vulnerabilities that the human defenders immediately exploited. Admiral Reyes, recognizing the opportunity, ordered all remaining Earth forces to launch a concentrated attack. Hit them while they're disorganized. Target their communication arrays first, then weapons systems. The battle that followed was brutal and costly, but for the first time, humanity fought with a genuine chance of victory. The Zaluk, accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority and centralized command, struggled to adapt to the sudden shift in circumstances. On the ground, resistance forces seized the moment as Zaluk ground troops lost coordination with their orbital support. Strikes against alien strongholds that had been carefully planned for weeks were executed simultaneously across the globe. Pierce's team, carrying their precious cargo of alien data, made a harrowing journey back to Earth, dodging debris and crossfire from the space battle. When they finally reached the secure landing zone in the Himalayan Command Center, they were greeted as heroes, though the victory remained incomplete and the cost had been staggering. The data they recovered proved invaluable. Analysis revealed crucial insights into Zaluk biology, technology, and, most importantly, their strategic objectives. They weren't merely conquerors seeking territory. They were resource extractors who had depleted their own world and now methodically harvested inhabited planets, preferring to eliminate native species that might compete for those resources. Earth wasn't their first target, Dr. Harris explained during the debriefing. Based on the data, they've done this many times before. They follow a standard protocol: scout, assess resistance, conquer, extract. We're simply the first species that's given them significant trouble. The revelation reinforced what many had already concluded. There could be no negotiation, no peaceful resolution. The conflict would end only with humanity's extinction or the Zaluk's defeat. The war entered a new phase. The aliens, having lost their command vessel and the atmospheric weapon, regrouped at Mars to consolidate their forces and summon reinforcement from deeper in the solar system. This gave Earth precious time to prepare for the next assault. General Pierce led the effort to adapt and implement. Zaluk technology. Captured alien vessels were studied and, where possible, repurposed. The disruption devices were mass-produced and improved, increasing their range and effectiveness. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, Pierce told his commanders during a strategy session 6 months into the conflict. We're fighting to ensure humanity has a future among the stars, because now we know for certain we're not alone in this universe, and not everyone out there is friendly. The final confrontation came a year after the initial invasion. The Zaluk, having rebuilt their forces, launched what they intended to be the decisive assault on Earth. But humanity was ready. A new fleet awaited them. Human vessels enhanced with reverse-engineered alien technology. Ground-based weapon systems have been upgraded to target specific vulnerabilities in Zaluk ships. And perhaps most importantly, humanity fought with the desperate determination of a species that had glimpsed extinction and refused to accept it. The battle engulfed the Earth-Moon system in fire and destruction. Millions died as cities were bombarded from orbit and alien landing forces clashed with human defenders. The oceans boiled where energy weapons struck their surface, and the sky was scarred with the trails of falling spacecraft. In the end, what turned the tide wasn't superior firepower or technology, but a fundamental miscalculation by the Zaluk. They had encountered many species in their conquests, but none had demonstrated humanity's particular combination of adaptability, tenacity, and sheer bloody-mindedness. When conventional tactics failed, humans improvised. When overwhelmed by force, they resorted to cunning. When defeated in one area, they continued fighting in another. The Zaluk war doctrine had no contingency for an enemy that simply refused to be conquered, regardless of the cost. The final strike came when a coalition of human forces, led by General Pierce himself, launched a daring assault on the Zaluk flagship. Using intelligence gathered from the captured data and techniques refined over months of combat, they managed to breach the vessel's defenses and plant enhanced disruption devices throughout its critical systems. The resulting cascade failure rippled through the alien fleet's command structure, leaving them vulnerable to a coordinated human counterattack. One by one, Zaluk vessels were destroyed or disabled. Those that could retreated, abandoning their ground forces to a battle they could no longer win. 3 days later, humanity celebrated a victory that had seemed impossible a year earlier. But the celebration was tempered by the devastating toll. Earth's population had been reduced by billions. Great cities lay in ruins. The environment had suffered damage that would take generations to heal. Yet amid the destruction, there was hope. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and survived. More than that, they had acquired knowledge and technology that would transform their civilization. In the years that followed, Earth was rebuilt, not as it had been, but as something new. The reverse-engineered Zaluk technology accelerated human development by centuries. Space travel became faster and more efficient. Energy production soared, eliminating the resource conflicts that had plagued earlier generations. General Pierce, now heading the newly formed Stellar Defense Force, oversaw the construction of a fleet designed not just for exploration, but for protection. The universe has proven to be more dangerous than we imagined. He explained in his address to the first graduating class of the Space Academy. But we've proven to be more dangerous than anyone imagined. The message broadcast across all frequencies into deep space was clear. Earth was not an easy target. Any species contemplating aggression against humanity would face a unified, technologically advanced civilization that knew how to wage war, and more importantly, knew how to win against overwhelming odds. Dr. Harris, who had become the head of the Earth Alliance Advanced Technologies Division, led the effort to understand and expand upon the Zaluk technology. Their approach to physics and engineering is fundamentally different from ours, he explained during a briefing with the newly formed Interplanetary Council. They've developed pathways we never considered, just as we've developed technologies they lacked. By integrating both approaches, we're creating something entirely new. The salvage data from the Zaluk command ship had revealed something else of critical importance. Star charts and navigational information identifying dozens of other spacefaring civilizations. Some appear to be victims of previous Zaluk invasions. Others were marked as potential future targets. And a few were identified as powers even the Zaluk avoided. Species whose technological development or military capabilities made them too dangerous to challenge. We're not alone in this struggle, Admiral Reyes told the council, her once dark hair now streaked with silver. There are others out there who faced the Zaluk or will face them. And there are civilizations beyond the Zaluk that may pose even greater threats or potential allies. This knowledge transformed humanity's approach to space exploration. The pre-invasion focus on scientific discovery and colonization was now balanced with strategic considerations. Every expedition carried both researchers and military personnel. Every new outpost was built with defense in mind. 5 years after the Zaluk retreat, Earth launched its first true interstellar vessel, the EAS_Horizon 2_, named in honor of Colonel Pierce's original reconnaissance ship. Unlike its predecessor, this vessel was built for deep space exploration, incorporating Zaluk propulsion technology that reduced travel time between stars from centuries to years. General Pierce, despite pressure to take a less active role after his pivotal contributions to the war, insisted on commanding this historic mission. "We've learned to defend our home," he said. "Now we need to understand our neighborhood." The Horizon 2 mission had multiple objectives. Search for any remaining Zaluk outposts that might threaten Earth in the future. Investigate the status of other civilizations marked on the alien star charts. And potentially establish contact with species that might become allies against common threats. The journey to the nearest star system identified in the Zaluk database took 8 months. What they found was sobering. A once thriving civilization reduced to ruins, its planet stripped of resources and abandoned. Automated beacons still transmitted warnings in an unknown language, their power supplies somehow functioning decades after their creators had been eliminated. This is what would have happened to Earth, Major Kovalenko murmured as they surveyed the devastation from orbit. Dr. Harris, analyzing the sensor readings, shook his head. The pattern of resource extraction is identical to what they attempted on Mars. This confirms our theory. The Zaluk are systematic. They follow the same protocols for each conquest, which means they're predictable, Pierce noted. That's an advantage if they ever return. The Horizon 2 continued its mission, visiting 3 more systems over the next 2 years. They found similar devastation in 2, suggesting the Zaluk had been methodically harvesting inhabited worlds for generations. The 4th system, however, offered a different discovery. The planet they approached showed signs of advanced civilization, but no indication of Zaluk attack despite being marked in the alien database. As they established orbit, they detected energy signatures unlike anything they'd encountered before, more advanced than human technology and distinctly different from Zaluk patterns. "We're being scanned," reported Lieutenant Commander Patel, who had remained with Pierce's crew. "Multiple frequencies, extremely detailed. They definitely know we're here." Before Pierce could formulate a response, a transmission reached them, not in any human language, but in a mathematical sequence that Patel recognized as a universal communication protocol mentioned in the Zaluk data. "They're inviting us to send representatives to the surface," Patel translated after analyzing the message. "And they're specifically noting that our vessel incorporates Zaluk technology but isn't of Zaluk design. They're curious about us." The decision to accept the invitation wasn't made lightly. Security protocols established after the invasion were clear. Unknown species were to be approached with extreme caution. But the opportunity to meet a civilization that had apparently deterred the Zaluk was too valuable to ignore. Pierce led the landing party himself, accompanied by Dr. Harris, Patel, and a security team equipped with the most advanced weapons Earth could produce. They touched down in what appeared to be a designated arrival area outside a gleaming city of curved, organic-looking structures. The beings that greeted them were bipedal, but clearly non-human. Tall, slender forms with iridescent skin that shifted colors as they moved. Communication was initially limited to mathematical exchanges and simple symbolic gestures, but Patel's expertise in xenolinguistics allowed for rapid progress. "They call themselves the Naraz," he reported after several hours of intensive exchange. "And they know the Zaluk well. According to them, the Zaluk attempted an invasion of their homeworld nearly a century ago, by our calendar. The Naraz not only repelled them, but drove them from this entire sector of space." The implications were enormous. Here was a species that had definitively defeated the same enemy that had nearly destroyed humanity. The potential for alliance and for learning advanced defense technologies was unprecedented. The subsequent diplomatic exchange was complex and delicate. The Naraz were cautious, having experienced their own history of interspecies conflict. But they were also pragmatic, recognizing the value of allies against common threats. The presence of Zaluk technology in the human vessel concerned them initially, but Pierce's explanation of how it had been acquired, through successful resistance against invasion, earned their respect. "They've agreed to a knowledge exchange," Patel announced after a particularly intensive negotiation session. "Not their most advanced technologies. Those require trust built over time, but substantial improvements to our propulsion, energy, and defensive systems. In return, they want detailed information on Zaluk tactics and weaknesses we discovered during the war." "Acceptable terms," Pierce agreed. "We have a common enemy. It makes sense to share information that helps us both." The exchange within Haraz marked the beginning of humanity's integration into the wider galactic community. Over the following decade, Earth established diplomatic relations with 7 spacefaring civilizations, 3 of which had also experienced Zaluk aggression. A loose coalition formed, not quite an alliance, but a network of species united by mutual self-interest and the recognition that cooperation offered better protection than isolation. Throughout this diplomatic expansion, Earth never relaxed its military readiness. The shipyards in Earth orbit and on Mars continued producing vessels, incorporating the best of human innovation and adapted alien technology. Defense outposts were established at strategic points throughout the solar system, creating a multi-layered security perimeter that extended far beyond Earth's orbit. Peace through strength isn't just a slogan. General Pierce told a graduating class at the newly established Interstellar Academy 15 years after the invasion. It's the lesson written in the blood of billions. We explore the stars with open hands, but those hands are attached to very strong arms. Sandra Reyes, whose brilliance had played such a crucial role during the war, now led Earth's most advanced research institution, focusing on both defensive technologies and methods of faster-than-light communication that would bind Earth's growing sphere of influence together. Her team's breakthroughs allowed human outposts on distant moons and planets to remain in constant contact with Earth, eliminating the isolation that had made early colonies vulnerable. The scars of the Zaluk invasion would never fully heal. Memorial gardens in every major city contained monuments listing names of the fallen, lists too long to read in a single day. The altered skylines of rebuilt cities served as constant reminders of what had been lost. Children born after the war grew up in a world fundamentally shaped by that cataclysm, learning history that drew a stark line between the pre-invasion and post-invasion eras. Yet humanity emerged from this crucible not just surviving, but transformed. The existential threat had forced a level of global cooperation previously thought impossible. National rivalries and corporate competitions still existed, but they were tempered by the shared memory of standing together against extinction. 20 years to the day after the final battle, a ceremony was held at the Earth Alliance headquarters in Geneva. The original crew of the Horizon those who had survived, gathered to unveil a monument commemorating those lost in humanity's first interstellar war. General Pierce, his hair now completely gray, but his posture still military straight, addressed the assembled dignitaries and citizens. We gather today not just to remember our dead, but to honor their sacrifice by continuing the work they began. Humanity now stands among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals with other sentient beings who share this vast galaxy. Admiral Reyes, newly appointed as the Earth Alliance's senior representative to the Interspecies Coalition, nodded in agreement. The Zaluk believed us weak because we lacked their technology. What they failed to understand, what so many advanced species fail to understand, is that technology alone doesn't determine the outcome of conflicts. Will adaptability, courage, these qualities matter just as much, sometimes more. As the ceremony concluded, attention turned to the massive view screen dominating one wall of the chamber. It displayed a live feed from the edge of the solar system, where Earth's most advanced monitoring station maintained constant vigilance against potential threats. The station's sensors swept across vast stretches of space, ensuring that no approach would go undetected, no potential enemy would catch humanity unprepared again. But the feed showed something else as well. The construction of humanity's latest achievement, a massive gateway that would utilize principles learned from both Zaluk and Haraz technology to create stable pathways between star systems, reducing interstellar journey times from years to days. This is our true memorial to those we lost, Dr. Harris said softly, watching the construction vessels move around the massive structure. Not just survival, but progress. Not just defense, but expansion. We didn't just endure the fire. We were forged by it. In a secure chamber beneath the Geneva complex, analysts continued monitoring long-range sensors that extended far beyond Earth's solar system. Intelligence suggested the Zaluk had withdrawn to regroup after their defeat, but no one believed they had abandoned their resource harvesting imperative. They would return eventually, perhaps in years, perhaps in generations. But when they did, they would find a very different humanity waiting for them. And on distant worlds, human exploratory vessels continue their missions, making first contact with new civilizations, establishing outposts on uninhabited planets suitable for colonization, and always watching for signs of threat. Each vessel carried with it the lesson learned at such terrible cost. In the vastness of space, peace must be hoped for, but war must be prepared for. In military academies across Earth and its colonies, the history of the Zaluk invasion was required study. Not just the tactics and technologies, but the mindset that allowed humanity to prevail against overwhelming odds. Instructors emphasized a single, fundamental truth to each new generation of defenders. Humans had faced the unimaginable and survived, proving that no enemy, however advanced, was invincible. The message broadcast regularly into deep space remained unchanged. Earth was not an easy target. But to this, humanity had added a second message, an open hand extended to those who came in peace, offering alliance, trade, and mutual protection in a dangerous galaxy. On the observation deck of the Horizon 3 Earth's newest flagship preparing for its maiden voyage beyond known space, General Pierce stood with his original team. They were older now, bearing the physical and psychological scars of the war that had defined their lives, but still driven by the same curiosity and determination that had carried them through humanity's darkest hour. "We thought we understood war," Pierce said, watching as the massive vessel's engines powered up. "Turns out, we were just beginning to learn." He turned to face his companions, his expression resolute. "But we're quick studies." The Horizon 3 broke orbit, accelerating toward the gateway that would catapult it to distant stars. As Earth receded behind them, becoming first a blue marble and then merely a bright point among countless others, the crew faced the unknown with the confidence of those who had already survived the impossible. Whatever waited beyond the familiar stars, be it peace or conflict, discovery or danger, humanity was ready. They had been tested in fire and had emerged not consumed, but tempered. The galaxy would learn what the Zaluk had discovered at terrible cost. Underestimating humans was a mistake no one made twice. The vastness of space stretched before humanity, no longer an impassable barrier, but a challenge to be met. Stars, once mere twinkling dots in ancient skies, had become destinations in a new age of exploration and vigilance. And wherever human vessels traveled, they carried with them the most important lesson of the Zaluk War. The nature of conflict might change. The scale might expand beyond imagination, but the indomitable spirit that had carried humanity from stone tools to starships remained constant, a force as powerful and enduring as the stars themselves.